Hallo, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdi, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen, pakhair ragale.
Ni hao, Churashume, Washmale, Ohio, Gazaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Washalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Fabiab, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside the very fantastic, the very energetic, the very beautiful, the very pretty Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. Hello, Shiza. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. But the funny thing is, Shazad, how just right before the show, we're just trying to get in position to, of course, open perfectly and whatnot. And something sometimes just goes wrong at the last moment. And the funniest is for us to realize being in the studio and having to pretend that everything is normal.
Yeah.
But, I feel like, Shazad, the good thing is, and our audience sort of, gave me this feedback as well.
Yeah.
They find us to be sort of natural and not scripted. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that, especially early in the morning. So we love to come to our work every day and share the real part of our lives with you.
Exactly.
This is us, This is us sort of studying about the topic that we would like to share with you. This is us being also sort of ignorant and sometimes even naive of the information that we should have. But that is us being laymen of Pakistan as well. And we love to perform our duty to learn as well as educate with you and sometimes even unlearn and relearn. How fun is that?
Exactly, and I think that in 20th century or in today's time, ladies and gentlemen, all of those people who can learn, unlearn, and then relearn are the ones who we call or label as literates as well. So for all of those people who might have done a degree like 2 decades ago and they haven't done anything so far, anything new so far, or they haven't learned anything new so far, it's not really degree, but for whatever kind of, tools you have picked up on or for whatever kind of skill you have picked up on recently, I think is actually going to help you sustain. And not just that, I think it will help you teach other people that, there's this need within this hour where we really need to learn everything, every other day as well, which is great. But not just that, Shiza, I think that you started the show on a very amazing and a positive note as well, that, we like coming to work. And then there are some things, which just go wrong on the 11th hour.
Because it's a live show.
Yes, and it's a live show and that we just cannot do anything about it. And that's how it is. And where you said that, it's about scripted or whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen, but there is a lot of hard work, preparation. Our researcher is doing a great job these days as well, Mr. Hasnan. But not just that, I think that this is something which actually applies to us from or probably every walk of life. And, for all of those people who might not be on television, there are so many things which can go wrong.
Yeah.
You wake up the next morning, okay, it's raining, your car got stuck. Not just that, okay, the other day I came to the studios and all of a sudden, but I could feel or realize was that, that the button of my waistcoat was missing. So, one way or the other, you really need to make sure that what is more important for you and make sure that you're going to prioritize it and give it your 100%.
Yeah, and Shazad, talking about all this, doesn't it make you feel that we literally do not have control over anything in our lives, of course, unless and until the creator up there is going to decide things for us, we cannot do anything about it. Like you said, these minor things, we always plan so much, this is how we're going to do, this is what we're going to talk about. And at the last moment, something may go wrong. We literally do not have any control over this. And it also makes you think how sort of insignificant one must be in the setting of the universe as well. But we're here for a purpose, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope we do find our purpose timely and go after it as well.
Exactly, that's true, because quite often just before we get started with the show, we are like, okay, you're going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this, and that's how we're going to go. But all of a sudden, while we are on air, ladies and gentlemen, we suddenly forget everything we wanted to say, and then there's this new topic. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of live shows as well, and we're very glad that I personally have done more than 1,000 live shows by now. And I think you might have crossed 500 or 600 as well. Anna?
But I'm way behind you, but mashallah, because you've been doing this for so long.
But it's great, and we love the kind of feedback we get from you people as well. So thank you very much for being a greater family to us as well. And for all of those people who are out there, ladies and gentlemen, we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, that you're following all the SOPs. And for all of those people who are sick, due to COVID or any other disease, we want you to get well as soon as possible.
Absolutely, and being the family that we are to you and you to us, today we have picked up on something so important that we need to talk about, and we need you to talk about as well, Whatever you learn from today's show, make sure that you share it with everyone, people on your phone list as well, people in your villages, friends in your neighborhood, whatnot. So today is the 28th of July, and it happens to be a very, very important day, not only in Pakistan, but in the entire world as well, but especially Pakistan being one of the members member states of the United Nations observes this day as the International or World's Hepatitis Day to, of course, create awareness and then go towards the solution of eradicating this disease.
Exactly.
Shahzad, what do you know about hepatitis in the world of lately?
All right, so speaking about hepatitis, ladies and gentlemen, all over the globe, what we know so far is that there are 290 million cases all over the globe.
Oh, God.
And not just that, I think that this year's theme is actually in line with what I'm trying to refer to over here, which is finding the missing millions. Because, ladies and gentlemen, half of the time, I think that people will have a better understanding because of COVID as well. Because even due to COVID, we are asymptomatic. But that does not mean that we do not have the disease. You're asymptomatic, that's you being lucky. But same is the case with hepatitis. There are different types, A, B, C, D, and E. We obviously have Dr. Saab over here who's actually going to let us know about it. But when we talk about Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, we have more than 15 million cases over here. And they do not know. But towards the end of this disease, it can actually get very fatal as well. And it totally depends on the kind of type you've been diagnosed with. But not just that, how do we actually do that? Ladies and gentlemen, over here at PTV World on World this morning, it's our responsibility to spread this message. And as Shiza very correctly said, that it's your responsibility to share it with everybody else as well. And we keep on saying, we keep on reiterating as well. I even keep on saying it to my family members, my sisters and everybody, that at least for once, in a year, we really need to get our all medical checkups done as well.
So
make sure whether the heart is working fine, make sure that the liver is working fine as well. So because this disease is directly related to the liver, ladies and gentlemen, God forbid, it can move on towards you getting diagnosed with liver cancer. So a stitch in time saves 9. I think that's the policy over here as well. But we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by a hepatologist over here in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky once again that we've actually been joined by consultant hepatologist. He's none other than Dr. Najmul Hassan Shah Saab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for asking me to be on the show today. And I think it was spontaneous as well. I just received a phone call and said, Dr. Najam, do you want to be here? And I said, okay, let's see what. And I think it's a very important day as well. And especially in the background of the COVID pandemic, I think there is a great awareness in the whole nation. And I think it will be very, very important to talk about this topic today.
Exactly.
Right. So, sir, thank you so much again for being here. It's absolutely our pleasure to have you. Now, to begin with, let's start with basic questions because we are here to, of course, educate the people watching. Hepatitis, by word, of course, it means burning of the liver or the inflammation of the liver too. But there are so many other diseases that one might develop with hepatitis. Let us know about those and let us know about all the prevalent types of hepatitis as well.
And before you do so, let's talk about the significance of this day and how do you think that will actually, the effort which we have made sure that we are going to do for the awareness of other people as well. How do you think that this will actually play a role in near future?
I think World Hepatitis Day is very important. 28th July is the day we celebrate it or hold it. And the first one was done in 2004. And every year we try to build a theme to create awareness about the prevention, diagnosis and management of viral hepatitis in the world. As I say, just like the COVID, which is a viral infection, hepatitis is a viral infection. Hepatitis is inflammation of the liver. Inflammation of the liver can be due to a variety of reasons, like drugs, medications, injuries, inflammations. But viral cause, viral inflammation of the liver is called viral hepatitis. So it's only one cause of the liver injury. And it is not only one, and not all viruses can damage the liver. And there are some specific hepatotrophic viruses that specifically affects the liver. And in the top of that will be hepatitis A. They are just like alphabetical. So they're easy to remember. A, B, C, D, and E are the common ones. So all of them.
There are other types as well?
There are a number of other, like more than like 10, 15 I can name that can affect the liver. But they are not as prevalent here in Pakistan as these viruses are.
So we are going to stick to A, B, C, D, and E.
So I mean, the important thing to know on the Viral Hepatitis Day is this is not only about hepatitis C. There are A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, hepatitis D, and E. And all are very important in the context of Pakistan.
Absolutely, and actually in the entire world as well. And so just before the show, you enlightened us about how millions of people in the entire world are actually living with hepatitis without being aware of the fact of it.
No.
And this is why, you know, the theme for this year is finding the missing millions. So now you let us know how important it is to be diagnosed first of all, and how fatal it may be to walk around in ignorance, let's say.
Yeah, I think it's very important because viral infections of the liver can be completely asymptomatic.
Right.
And a person might acquire the virus. It might not manifest itself symptomatically.
Okay.
So many people will not be aware of this.
Okay.
If this is a virus that you acquire and then have a short period and then disappears and you develop an immunity, that's okay.
Okay.
So out of the A, B, C, D, so for example, hepatitis A or E can be asymptomatic. You can acquire it, and within like 6 months, you can develop immunity to it. But there are viruses that stays in the body longer, and they have devastating effects in the long run.
Exactly.
And that's why we call them chronic hepatitis.
Yeah.
Chronic viral hepatitis.
Which is why this is something which I wanted to ask about as well, that, you know, for somebody who's actually asymptomatic, and especially over here in Pakistan where we are not even able to get rid of polio, I think it is very difficult for even for the doctors, even for the government, and for everybody out there to make sure that, you know, that we get rid of it. Because in 2019, the theme was actually that, you know, getting rid of hepatitis in near future as well, which somehow we are not able to so far. But that's something which we really need to work on together and join hands as well. But not just that, you know, since you mentioned that, you know, that there can be devastating effects or impact onto your liver if you're not diagnosed. But for somebody who's asymptomatic, how do you think that they will, you know, out of the blue, they will go and they'll be like, okay, you know, can you do my test? I think it comes down to the responsibility of the doctor or, you know, the healthcare providers who they're visiting regularly for whatever problems to get that checked. Because over here, I've never ever seen, obviously we do know that there's this culture of getting a lot of tests done and, you know, the doctors just keeps on writing the test. But why not these ones which are actually very important?
Yeah. I think the answer to that is, you know, in this age of communication where there's so much information on the net, and I think even in a country like Pakistan, I think the range and this like the use of this is very common.
Exactly.
And even people who are uneducated have access to information.
Yes.
Right.
And therefore, I think if awareness is important, to try and spread the message that a number of people can be infected with this virus without they ever knowing. And that's why this year's theme, that missing, finding the missing million.
Exactly.
Because a large percentage of patients with chronic hepatitis, viral hepatitis, are unaware of their disease.
All right.
And I think it can be diagnosed with very simple tests.
All right.
So I think our role here is, the government's role is to try and spread this message that chronic viral hepatitis can be asymptomatic in a big percentage of people, and it can be diagnosed with simple test.
Right.
So that's the message. So anywhere, everybody in whatever language, you can spread this message in Urdu, Pashto, and, you know, your salam. I think that's what you need to tell people, that go and get tested. Because it can be diagnosed whether you are someone who might be harboring this virus in you over a long period of time. And as well as by simple tests, they can determine how much damage this has caused, and then you can predict the future course, and then you plan management and accordingly.
Exactly, and that's wonderful as well. But for all our people who are out there, ladies and gentlemen, sir over here, Dr. Saab, actually happens to be the director of the Liver Transplantation Center at Quaid-e-Azam Hospital. So, which is why I think the first and the foremost important thing which we really need to ask is, since you've mentioned a lot of times that it's viral hepatitis. Correct. And we have seen with COVID-19 and just with flu as well that, you know, God forbid, if you shake hands, you hug somebody, you sneeze in front of anybody, you know, you are prone to that infection. Does that apply to hepatitis, viral hepatitis as well? That how do you think that people can transmit? Let's do a little bit of myth busting as well. Because back in the days, if somebody had hepatitis, he or she was actually treated as if, you know, they had some problem where people cannot actually be in touch with them. You know, they cannot share the same plates, the same culinary, or, you know, so how do all of these things work?
I think it's very important, and for a very a simple way to say, viral hepatitis is divided into two routes of transmission.
Okay.
One are those viruses that can be acquired through orofecal route.
Okay.
So whatever water and food you take, you actually acquired the virus through that, which is very common in Pakistan as well, because the health hygiene and the food hygiene and the water hygiene is not very good. So that's very important. The second group of and in this group are hepatitis A and E. And we, like in Asia, like India, Pakistan, Nepal, because where the water available is not very pure, and very common routes of transmission of fecal-oral route. So we have very high prevalence of hepatitis A and E in this country.
Okay.
The second group is hepatitis B and C. We call that parenteral transmission. That means you can acquire it through like the blood to blood, or body secretions.
All right.
So like, and that is again very common in Pakistan, because we have unsafe healthcare practices, and therefore injection use, barbers, and unsafe blood transfusions, and so on and so forth. And I think that is another very important concept to understand. I see patients who come to me from a particular area, and they are suffering from hepatitis A and E, and they tell me that our water source is not very good. And when I test them, they have hepatitis C or B. So I try to convince them that this has nothing to do with the water quality. That is completely a different virus.
Okay.
So I think that distinction is very important, that which virus, because hepatitis A and E is a short symptomatic, and majority patient recover from it. But chronicity is what is important for us, because it just destroys the liver over a long period of time. And then the patients are unaware of it, but they can be asymptomatic as well. So two routes of transmission, both very common in Pakistan because of this, and I think that distinction is very important.
Right, and so where you mentioned that patients often come to you with a different type of hepatitis, and claiming that maybe we don't have access to clean water. Now that is, I want to say, misinformation on their part, but this is what we are doing. We're trying to aware them. And of the 2015 to 16 research that WHO did in the region, 80% of the hepatitis cases in the region belong to Egypt and Pakistan altogether, and that is such a huge number. So, sir, now I want this discussion to be sort of Pakistan-oriented, so we can, generate solutions too. So, you let us know, when we talk about different types of hepatitis in Pakistan, what might affect the type and prevalence, and then, even the disease to go further as well. Like you mentioned, yes, of course, sanitation and hygiene is one reason, but what other reasons might there be?
And before, sir, you answer this as well, just going back where you were actually letting us know about the roots as well. Can a newly born baby contract hepatitis from his mother as well?
Yeah.
Or her mother?
I think yes, I think that is one of the routes of transmission. We call that vertical transmission.
Okay.
So, but the most important risk is the healthcare practice of delivery, and that's why we encourage people to have safe delivery. I think that is the key, because there can be blood loss, there can be injuries during childbirth, and I think when there is a breach of the normal body defenses, and that is where, if a person is carrying the hepatitis virus and it's active, they can transmit it to the baby as well. So I think that is how it is transmitted to the babies as well.
And now moving on to Shiza's question.
Yeah, I think it's important, as I say, that hepatitis A and E are food and waterborne infections. So I think it's related to public health. So if you have safe drinking water sources, that will eliminate the sewerage lines, the mixing of the sewerage lines with the water connections.
And that's hardly 3% of the population who have the access to safe drinking water.
And I think that reflects that there's so many people who acquire. I mean, like we test people like young children. So by the age of 10, 90% of them might have acquired hepatitis A, and they were not aware. I mean, they say he had a small fever, he was symptomatic, and they recover from it without any complications. But if you test them, by the time they reach to age 10, 14, majority of them already had like hepatitis A because of the unsafe water and food sources here, and the public health problem here. The second part is the transmission, parenteral transmission, and I think that is very important, and I think that is a huge problem, because when you have a short illness and you recover and develop immunity, that is perfectly okay for that person to come out of it without being harmed. But imagine somebody who is harboring the virus and it is still active. That is the reservoir of infection.
All right.
So if you have like 100 people who are harboring the virus without knowing it, every time they go out, they are the risk to the other people.
Okay.
Because their body secretions, their blood products, if they get any injury, they donate blood. That is how it poses the risk to them as well as to the risk to the other people.
Exactly.
So people who are unaware of their disease actually are the reservoir of infection.
All right.
And that is why we need to find the missing million.
Exactly, and that's the message, that we need to focus and try and spread the message that get tested, get tested. Just like the coronavirus, you might not be aware of it, but actually you are the risk to yourself and you are the risk to the other people.
Exactly. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, sir, as well. And but right now, ladies and gentlemen, we obviously have to go out towards a short break. But when we guys will come back, we obviously want some other opinions. We're not looking for second opinion because we truly trust Dr. Najm Saab over here as well. But what we want is that, for people who've been working in different sectors within the healthcare departments, I think it is very important to get them on this platform as well so that they can share their point of view. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going for a short break. But when you guys will come back, we will definitely be joined by Professor Dr. Umar Saab, who happens to be the Vice Chancellor of the Rawalpindi Medical University. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Good morning.
The Badshai Mosque, or the Royal Mosque in Lahore, commissioned by the 6th Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb in 1671 and completed in 1673, is the second largest mosque in Pakistan and South Asia and the 5th largest mosque in the world. Epitomizing the beauty, passion and grandeur of the Mughal era. It is Lahore's most famous landmark and a major tourist attraction. Capable of accommodating 5,000 worshippers in its main prayer hall and a further 95,000 in its courtyard, it remains the largest mosque in the world. From 1673 to 1986, a period of 313 years, when overtaken in size by the completion of the Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. Today, it remains the second largest mosque in Pakistan and South Asia and the 5th largest mosque in the world after Masjid al-Haram, Grand Mosque of Mecca, and Al-Masjid al-Nabwi, Prophet's Mosque in Medina. The Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca and the Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. To appreciate its large size, the 4 minarets of the Badshai Mosque are 13.9 feet, 4.2 meters taller than those of the Taj Mahal, and the main platform of the Taj Mahal can fit inside the 278,784 square feet courtyard of the Badshai Mosque, which is the largest mosque courtyard in the world. Architectural wonders of Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Welcome back to Well This Morning, ladies and gentlemen, with the very informative today Shahzad Khan and Shahzad Hashmi. So today on the 28th of July, we have decided, of course, as a team to inform you and ourselves and educate ourselves, of course, about the very disease hepatitis, which has so many forms of transmission, so many types itself, is prevalent amongst, people in Pakistan, in the entire region, in entire world, and we need to end it as soon as possible. And Shahzad, with the rate of transmission that it is having lately, the WHO in 2015 predicted that if this continues, this rate that we're talking about, about 20 million deaths are expected to occur just in the time period of 2015 to 2030. So we better eradicate it by 2030,
And World Health Organization, ladies and gentlemen, is on this mission as well, but we obviously have to comply to whatever SOPs they've given to us in order to make sure that there's no more chronic viruses of such sort as well. But not just that, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time that on this day we actually be in conversation with somebody who's done a lot, who's made sure that there's a lot of awareness programs going on. So ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by the Vice Chancellor of the Rawalpindi Medical University, somebody whom we all know as a hero. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Dr. Umar Saab is with us. Hello sir, Assalamu Alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum Salam. Good morning from my side also. Thank you very much for invitation.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us on this day as well, where we are actually talking about finding the missing millions. Now, can you please share the entire concept? How do we really need to proceed with this? How do you think that we are going to find all of those people who have never ever gotten themselves tested for hepatitis in the first place?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for the invitation and highlighting the importance of World Hepatitis Day. As you know, that the hepatitis is a global health problem. And Pakistan is coming up now the second most populated country where the hepatitis B and C are the commonest one after China. So although a couple of years before it was Egypt, which was the second, but now we are in the second. So this is something very disturbing. The reason, because the hepatitis B and C viruses are potentially dangerous viruses. They can lead to liver cirrhosis, which they commonly called as liver shrinkage, and ultimately they lead to the formation of ascites, which is fluid in the abdomen, unconsciousness, which is hepatic encephalopathy, and worst it is the hepatocellular carcinoma, which is commonly caused as liver. These sort of viruses which can lead to this sort of a lethal complication and very high mortality. So what is the solution? I think the nature is not so unkind to us. We can 100% can be safe from these viruses if we have two strategies. The first strategy is if we do the precautions and preventions. So both of these viruses are 100% preventable. I will touch that point after the second point. And then if somebody unluckily do get this virus or do get disease with hepatitis B and C, once it is diagnosed, it is hepatitis C is 100% almost curable.
All right.
We have a lot of new medications and they are very effective. Similarly, we have very effective medication for hepatitis B. So what is the dilemma? The dilemma is that disease is asymptomatic in 60% of the cases. So you don't know that you have this virus which can have a very dangerous outcome, a serious outcome like liver cancer or may need liver transplant. So what should be the mission? So objective should be find those asymptomatic patients who carry this virus, but they are never diagnosed because they are not symptomatic. I mean, they don't have fever, they don't have even clinically visible jaundice, they don't have, other symptoms as other diseases have. So people ignore it. So what should be the strategy? I think the strategy should be now designed by the WHO in 2015 that we must test everybody, starting from the high risk population to the low risk population. So this is called the find the missing millions. So there are millions of the people, and let me praise you here that in Pakistan there may be 130 to 150 100 million people who are having this hepatitis B and C virus, and majority of them are asymptomatic. You can imagine if we do not have test and treat strategy, and we do not reach to these outreach people who are asymptomatic, who are not aware of the disease, these patients are going to end up with a liver cancer or liver failure who need transplant, and they come to the hospitals when you cannot offer them the treatment. So what is our national duty and national strategy, and the duty of a doctor, healthcare professionals, the societies like Pakistan Society of Hepatology, Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology, the in charge of the hospitals, private practitioner, that they must advise test of hepatitis B, C to the common population also.
Exactly. Sir, very wonderfully explained. Just a few questions which we wanted to ask from you as well, because we over here happen to be in conversation with Dr. Najmul Hassan Saab as well, and he says that you're one of those people who've actually done quite a lot to make sure that you're going to spread a lot of awareness within the country and outside the country, which is great. But sir, just a random question which I thought that it will be better for me to ask. And that is that, obviously once we get ourselves tested and God forbid we get to know that we might have been diagnosed with hepatitis B or C or any other type, don't we have any vaccines? For example, when a baby is born, we do give them, those rotavirus vaccines and whatnot. So do we have such vaccines over here in Pakistan, or we do not have any such vaccine over here?
I think that's a wonderful question. So that is a part of prevention, that how we can prevent the hepatitis B and C. So there is a very effective vaccination against the hepatitis B. And luckily from 2006 or even before that, the Pakistan government has included this vaccine into the EPI program, which is our immunization program of vaccinating the 5 diseases. So it is now included. So every newborn get this vaccination, irrespective to that the mother having hepatitis B or C, as the EPI program. So alhamdulillah, this program is going well, and up to now I think the result is 70%. And in coming days, according to this strategy, we believe that inshallah by vaccinating all of the newborn, I think we will eradicate the hepatitis B from our next generation. Now coming to the hepatitis C, there is no preventive vaccine. Hepatitis vaccine, there is no vaccine like this still in the world which can be used as a preventive vaccine. So unfortunately, people do get hepatitis C, that the only strategy remains is to test them and treat them.
Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation. Thank you very much for taking our time and making sure that you play your part on World Hepatitis Day. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Professor Dr. Umar Saab, who happens to be the Vice Chancellor of the Rawalpindi Medical University as well. Before we move on to another guest, I want to come back to Dr. Najm over here, because we haven't spoken about these vaccines. So let's talk about them a little as well. Who can actually get that vaccine? Where can we get it from? And do we actually have to, even at this stage, have to get ourselves tested first and then get the vaccine, or we just go and get a jab?
For hepatitis B, we are talking about the vaccine, because that is the virus that can be prevented if you vaccinate yourself. So I think from 2016 or 6, I think, the whole of any baby born will receive this universal vaccination program. So you have 1 injection, then 2nd and the 3rd. So if anybody gets 3 injections, you develop immunity against the virus, and therefore you're prevented from this.
And sir, speaking about this immunity as well, what we have realized, I think that COVID has actually taught us quite a lot. They say that the antibodies are actually going to stay within the body, which the research say only for 3 months or probably 6 months as well. It varies from individual to individual. But for the vaccine of hepatitis B, for how long are we going to be immune to that particular viral hepatitis?
That's a very good question, because majority of people will develop enough immunity, and you can do a test to see the level of your antibodies.
Okay.
But the immunity is usually lifelong.
Okay.
But there are a small percentage of population where the antibody level can drop. And if you test and get a booster, they call it, then that will be
Boost
effective for the life.
Exactly.
One more injection.
And do
these
we have
are
to
very, they're very cheaper. I mean, they're very small cost for this.
And do we have to get ourselves tested first and then get a vaccine done, or probably just go to the hospital and be like, okay, give me
I think
that
it's a very important question. I always discuss it with my colleagues. The reason being, there are patients who come to us and say they got vaccinated but still got the hepatitis B. But in my opinion, those are the people who already got the virus before.
They already had it.
Exactly. Right. So I think there's a simple test which can show whether you are exposed to the virus beforehand. So for adults especially, I recommend to do that particular test and then afterwards get the vaccination.
All right. So just
now
a quick
coming
question.
back to, I'm sorry, Professor Umar has a great contribution to the cause of liver disease and especially hepatitis. What is the challenge? On the World Hepatitis Day, what is the inhibition? Policies are made, we have paper format of things, everybody is involved, and still we are unable to eradicate and achieve the target. Just like you mentioned about the polio. There is a lack of, unless you involve the population, there is a responsibility, and the public representative. What you need is a test to go and offer it to everyone in the community. Mass testing is the way forward. You need to find them. Where are these missing millions? So how are you going to dig them out?
How, sir?
Test them, and test them. And how would you do that? You can do that on an election day. You can have, just like you're checking that whether you are registered for a vote, you can go and do the test there. You can put them free of cost on the like the shopping malls. You can go and do this in universities and schools, involve the local representatives, the national representatives, the provincial ones, your beautiful system of the local bodies. So you need to go to the communities and get this tested so that you separate those who are harboring this virus from the rest of the community.
Right, that's brilliant.
Is the key.
That's absolutely a brilliant idea, and I really hope we do realize that as well. But very quickly, since we're short on time, ladies and gentlemen, luckily we have been joined by the head of the gastroenterology department of Rawalpindi Medical University as well. Professor Dr. Zahid Minhas is with us. Hello, assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to our show. Can you hear us?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much for this invitation.
Thank you very much for taking our time, but there's only one concern, and that is that my colleague over here obviously wants to ask a question as well. But since the theme this year around is finding the missing millions, now for a country like Pakistan, where we cannot even get all the Pakistanis tested with the COVID test, which was very cheaper, and now people have actually got the kits at their homes too as well. How do you think we are going to do so in order to find those missing millions?
Actually, this is a very uphill task, and many attempts have been done. And now recently the WHO is also on this way that up to 2030, we should be eliminating this hepatitis from the world, from Pakistan and the world. Actually in Pakistan, the main issue is the screening, mass screening. And until and unless we do the mass screening and pick up the patients and treat them, we cannot eliminate this hepatitis. And this is the major task. And we hope that we should be doing with the WHO, and the Ministry of Ministry of Health is working with them, and there will be a way out in I hope due to COVID it has been postponed. In this year we can help this.
But Dr. Dr. Zaid, unfortunately I have to say this, but this is the truth as well of our society. Like we have realized this during the COVID times as well. There's a certain stigma attached to any sort of disease that is, of course, chronic or like hepatitis or infectious it is. Yes. So while we find the missing millions, we also have to consider that the people who do know their status of hepatitis, they are really reluctant in sharing it with people, and then being careful for themselves and for the people as well. How can we remove the stigma and also aware the people in celebrating this day like we do? We want every single one to be on board as well. How can we do that?
This is it, as you know, you are doing this World Hepatitis Day program. We are just arranged a walk for the hepatitis awareness program. We have also doing a Rawalpindi free, hepatitis free Rawalpindi city program, and we done in multiple union councils. And this is the way out to reach the people, to make them aware and just help them that how they can, it is not a stigma. Basically, when it is diagnosed, no, the hepatitis C is completely treatable. We have drugs in the hospitals free of cost of whole of the Punjab, and I hope that it can be made available in whole of the Pakistan. So, if the drugs are available, and we can make a cheaper diagnosis with the screening, and this is just a treatment of 3 months, and the results are almost 98-99%, as the previous results were not so good. So we can have these people confidence that if you treat, you come to the hospitals, you come to the camps, you screen yourself, and if you know you have the hepatitis C, you can be treated, you can get the medicine, and this is the way out to treat the people and give them the confidence. Because and also the people should know what is the consequences if they don't treat, because it can cause multiple complications, which may include the hepatocellular carcinoma, which includes the upper GI bleed and other ascites.
So these are some things which we have discussed already with Dr. Najmul Hasan Sahab as well. But thank you very much for taking out time. It was wonderful to be in conversation, and thank you very much for letting everybody know that everybody needs to get themselves tested, and that's how we're going to move forward. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaid Sahab, for being with us. But ladies and gentlemen, towards the end, very quickly, what I want to do is that I want to give my recommendation. And this recommendation is very simple, and I think it's doable as well. Because as far as, everybody out there, all of you pretty much know that I went through COVID. Just a few days ago, a few weeks ago as well. Got myself tested twice. They came out negative, and then that was the time when I resumed my work. But not just that, but what I'm going to recommend over here is that it was the district health officer who actually came to my place to get me tested.
Okay.
Why cannot we actually, kind of have such kind of strategy where the DHOs are actually going to, locate a population, go one by one, get them tested street by street, and whatever the results may probably be, then I think that these tests really need to be made mandatory, and that everybody who's out there really need to get themselves tested. I think that's the only solution. So what solution do you have for all of us?
I think it's very important to mention that there is a lot of effort, individual, local, provincial, national. All we need is to coordinate all those efforts into a common portal. And I think the recent COVID response from the government with the National Command and Control Center, I think we need to understand that hepatitis C is a bigger killer than the COVID.
Exactly.
Right.
15 million people.
Yeah, and because it is a risk to the individuals who are infected, it is a risk to the population as well. And anybody who is positive, it will remain as a risk and perpetuate, long term. So we need a coordinated response. And I think there is already effort on the part of the government. But I think involvement of the public representative. I personally feel that even you involve you have constituency-based response. You need to involve your MPAs and MNAs and the local councillors. And this will be a 10 years response. Exactly. This is not like 1 year work. It is not something that will happen in 1 year. Exactly. If you roll out a screening program, mass screening program, it will be ongoing, and it should be owned by all parties actually.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
that there is like a national response to this for 10 years to eliminate the virus from from Pakistan, and we can do that.
Absolutely.
As you know that there is a lot of response from the public if you give them the correct information.
Thank you very much,
so
sir,
for
for being with us, and I think that you've actually summed up the entire conversation wonderfully well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for informing us too. Ladies and gentlemen, what we require of you on this day, because we're really short on time, just please be aware yourself and aware everyone around you as well, because like Sir said, hepatitis C is a bigger killer than COVID, and if you do not know at time, of course you cannot curb it or, you know, take a control on it as well. If you have any feedback, any questions, write to us on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube with the name of World This Morning. And the repeat of this particular show you can of course catch at 5 + midnight tonight. Till the next time, take care. Good morning.
1, 2, 3, good morning. Thank you.